Congressman Paul Ryan, a Republican. He'll deliver the Republican response, expected to call for an end to, quote, spending binges in Washington. Democratic Congressman Dennis Kucinich on the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee back with us here on America's Newsroom. How you doing, sir? Good morning to you. It's been a couple months since we have spoken. Hey, you think America's ready for the tough love that's necessary to dig us out of a $14 trillion debt that increases by the day?
Well, if we're talking about ending the binges that where money went to Wall Street, or the spending binge that's going on at the Pentagon, the binges that are going on in Iraq and Afghanistan with U.S. taxpayers' dollars, I'm all for that. If they're talking about something else, then we have a lot more to talk about.
Well, they're talking about $2.5 trillion in cuts over the next 9 or 10 years.
Right.
And you just look at it and think, holy cow, I mean, how do we ever get there in the first place? Now, your point about Wall Street, you probably have some friends who agree on that bailout. They're called Tea Party members, and they're
right.
your colleagues now in the House.
Right.
But when it comes to all this other spending, it really seems like we're getting two different stories here. One where the Republicans are saying, let's go ahead and cut. And what we expect from the president later tonight is to talk about more investing. And you know what Republicans have already said about that word investing. They believe that's code for more spending.
Well, yeah, I can see the concern about spending. And again, you know, I voted against the bailout. I didn't like the fact that we gave all this money to Wall Street. And, you know, the banks basically hoarded the money. There's still businesses struggling to try to survive. They can't get loans from banks. And the private sector, even with the tax cuts, hasn't responded sharply enough to produce jobs. I have an understanding of what the concerns the Republicans have. However, if you're talking about cutting discretionary spending that would result in, let's say, education being slashed, that's a problem. If you're talking about leaving the military budget status quo and continuing the wars, that's a problem. So I think it's important to get the details. And maybe tonight Mr. Ryan and others will provide us with some details so we can have a discussion about what our priorities should be.
And when it comes to spending and investing in America from a business standpoint, not a political standpoint, it is said that American companies are sitting on $2 trillion in cash. Right. I mean, just imagine that pile. And the reason they're sitting on it, not spending, is because they're not quite sure what Congress is going to do next. You can understand their confusion.
Well, I think it's very important that we get the economy moving. We have to get America back to work. We have to get the money moving in the economy. And I think that there is a concern about business having confidence in the government. However, we have to realize that the basic problem in America right now is unemployment. You have 15 million people unemployed. You have another 12 million underemployed. You have businesses that are starved for capital. And we've got to prime the pump of the economy. You've got to be very careful about putting the brakes on certain types of spending, because that could send us into a deeper recession.
Well, and that debate continues. Fundamentally speaking, is Washington going to spend more before it cuts?
Well, I would say it depends on what kind of spending you're talking about. I think we need to create millions of new jobs. We're going to need another WPA, put America back to work, get more taxpayers actively contributing, so that we have more Americans are productive.
Wasn't that what the stimulus was about in large part 2 years ago?
Look, you know what, the stimulus, as your report pointed out earlier, the stimulus provided money for states, but the kind of stimulus we needed, we didn't get anywhere near that. The government ought to be investing in creating jobs, and a lot of jobs. That way everybody shares in a prosperity. Right now we have a separation between the very wealthy in America and the middle class is starting to fall apart. We've got to start repairing the middle class. That's jobs, retirement security, investment in small business. I'm hopeful the president's going to address that tonight.
You see that firsthand because that's hit your district so hard back in Cleveland, Ohio. Two ideas here. Just give me a yes or no on the following that we'll hear later about tonight. Replacing Medicare with vouchers and allowing some workers to invest Social Security taxes in private accounts. Is that a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Not a chance?
That's two thumbs up, or down rather. That's two thumbs down. No way. Privatize Social Security. That's the bright red line of Social Security. You can't touch Social Security. Look, just think about this. Think if we'd have put Social Security money into Wall Street before the last crash. people would have lost everything they saved a lifetime for through their earnings.
But you could build
that they put
safety
in.
nets into that, and you know all those investments.
For who? For Wall Street.
All those investments came back. Go ahead, finish your
all
point.
All the protections are given to Wall Street. All the guarantees are for Wall Street. Main Street is struggling to survive. You privatize Social Security, and you're basically signing a warrant for the demise of our elderly people. You cannot privatize Social Security. You have to protect it from Wall Street, not hold hands with Wall Street as Wall Street picks the pockets of America's seniors.
A lot of people say you have to do something about Social Security. Listen, I'm out of time. Please come back. We'll continue our debate. There is plenty to talk about. Dennis Kucinich, Democrat.